Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. How are you guys doing today? I hope you guys are doing well. So this video is from Thomas Sowell and it's titled, Why Do Socialist Liberals Always Blame Poverty on the Rich? You guys, I'm excited to check this one out and let's see what this video is all about.
Quoting Bernie Sanders, while there are some great corporations, this is the question of causation versus blame. While there are some great corporations trying to do the right thing, in my view, and I say this very seriously, the greed of the billionaire class, the greed, this is not supposed to be funny. I say this very seriously. The greed of the billionaire class, the greed of Wall Street is destroying the lives of millions of Americans. Close quote. What do we make of that?
It's astonishing, but I think even more astonishing is how many people voted for Bernie Sanders at a time where in socialist Venezuela, people are starving. They're breaking into stores in their desperation to get some food. They're crossing the borders into other countries to stave off starvation. In a country that has one of the world's largest supplies of oil, that they've managed to do that in that country. And people are so utterly insulated from facts that the fact that Bernie Sanders paints a very beautiful picture is all that matters.
It is not the origins of poverty which need to be explained. What requires explaining are the things that created and sustained higher standards of living. What do you mean by that?
Well, there are actually books with titles and subtitles about the origins of poverty. Well, the entire human species began in poverty. So I don't know how we're going to say, what is the origin of this, perhaps in the Garden of Eden or someplace.
Poverty
but more than that,
okay.
more than that, you're trying to explain why some countries are poor, rather than trying to explain why other countries are more prosperous. There's no explanation needed for poverty. The species began in poverty. So what you really need to know is what are the things that enable some countries and some groups within countries to become prosperous.
Okay. Further, continuing that point, I just want to dig out this sort of big overriding theme. Again, I'm quoting Wealth, Poverty, and Politics. Quote, one of the key implicit assumptions of our time is that many economic and social outcomes would tend to be either even or random. Everybody would finish up in the same place if left to the natural course of events, so that the strikingly uneven and non-random, rich people, rich countries, poor country, the strikingly uneven and non-random outcomes so often observed in the real world imply some adverse human intervention. Close quote. Why has that become an implicit assumption? So common that you need to bat it down again and again in this book.
Well, why is that something you have to ask the people who believe that? But if you're asking, does it have any validity? The easy answer is no. That if you start just with geographic things, geography is not even. The rivers of the world are not equally usable by human beings. I'll give you one example. The Zaire River, which starts in Central Africa and goes great distances to the ocean, it has more water than the Mississippi. But it's not as valuable as the Mississippi because it has all sorts of waterfalls, cascades, and so on. So there's only a certain distance you can go on the Zaire River. I mean, it's a more picturesque river, but to an economist, it's awful because it means that you've isolated great numbers of people. In a period of about 150 miles, there are, I forget, some huge number of cascades and waterfalls, adding up to a drop of about 1,000 feet. On the Mississippi, the riverbed goes down 4 inches per mile. Those are different rivers.
Right.
But everything is different. The ground is different. The air is different. Everything.
Okay. Again, I'm quoting, continuing on this theme.
Guys, this is a very interesting topic, but who is to blame for poverty? Is it the rich who have tested? Is it the rich who knows what affluence is all about and keep amassing wealth as a result of being greedy in the society, or it is the poor who are too lazy to get out of their poverty, who exactly is the cause of poverty in the society? Let me know what you guys think about this. Leave your thoughts and let's continue watching.
The implicit assumption of evenness or randomness of outcomes in the absence of human interventions has been enough to turn a search for causation into a search for blame. Where do you find that?
Well, if all the background conditions are such as would lead to equality of outcomes,
Right.
and you find great inequalities, then somebody must have messed with it.
Right.
But as economic historian David Landy said, the world has never been a level playing field. It's not a level playing field geographically, culturally, politically, you name it, it's not.
All right. Tom, I am hoping to use wealth, poverty, and politics. I'm hoping to use this conversation to apply the lessons of wealth, poverty, and politics to the current American scene and have you tell me what to think about certain statements and certain, well, you'll get the idea. Here's a quotation from Bernie Sanders, the Vermont senator who nearly won the Democratic presidential nomination. Quote, quoting Bernie Sanders, while there are some great corporations, this is the question of causation versus blame. While there are some great corporations trying to do the right thing, in my view, and I say this very seriously, the greed of the billionaire class, the greed, this is not supposed to be funny. I say this very seriously. The greed of the billionaire class, the greed of Wall Street is destroying the lives of millions of Americans. Close quote. What do we make of that?
It's astonishing, but I think even more astonishing is how many people voted for Bernie Sanders at a time where in socialist Venezuela, people are starving. They're breaking into stores in their desperation to get some food. They're crossing the borders into other countries to stave off starvation. In a country that has one of the world's largest supplies of oil, that they've managed to do that in that country. And people are so utterly insulated from facts that the fact that Bernie Sanders paints a very beautiful picture is all that matters.
All right. One of the themes in wealth, poverty, and politics, isolation. You've already spoken a little bit about geography. Isolation. You do this a dozen different times. You take different aspects of reality, economic reality, and explain how they affect economic development. So but of course we only have time for a few, but here, isolation. Quote, isolation is a recurring factor in poverty and backwardness around the world, close quote. And you note that people who live in mountains, Afghanistan, Appalachia, you couldn't ask for more separated mountain communities, and yet you see much the same kind of backwardness. Isolation per se leading to backwardness. Explain that.
Well, I don't so much explain it as I simply give enormous numbers of examples of it. The mountain people being one, people who are living in isolated islands like the Canary Islands. Back in the 15th century when the Spaniards conquered the Canary Islands, they found the people there living as people had lived in the Stone Ages. In Australia, very similar things when the British arrived there in the late 18th century. They found the Australian Aborigines living again as people had lived elsewhere in the Stone Ages.
Right.
You find there are enclaves of groups that are isolated from what other groups are doing. That you find the same thing: socially isolated, politically isolated, for whatever reason. What it suggests to me is that an individual really can do very little without a great number of other things, including what he learns from other human beings. And if you have some group of 3,000 or 2,000 living in some mountain village, whether in Italy or Kashmir, wherever, you're not going to find them keeping abreast of people who are living in port cities and in touch with the whole rest of the human race.
Okay, so trade is important?
Yes.
All right.
You guys, that was such an interesting one from Thomas Sowell. And I love how Thomas Sowell is so interested in every area of the society because he covers every topic that has to do with the society. And one thing I have come to realize is that human beings are naturally greedy. because as soon as one is exposed to being rich, the only thing they will think of is how to become richer, and because of this they become greedy. And let's not forget that greedy people or the rich people are the one that brings about civilization. And let me know what you guys think about this video in the comment section down below. Most of the millionaires and the billionaires are the ones pushing humanity to the future, because this set of people are the ones making life more successful for others to live, because without money the system cannot work. But nowadays most people have become excessively greedy, especially some politicians, that they want to steal from the government instead of growing their society. Let me know what you guys think about this video in the comment section down below. And how do you guys think the poor, what do you guys think the poor should do in order to become successful? Let me know, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye guys.